We thought about moving back to the country, and then the offer came up to work with Ray Campling at the Yarriambiack Shire in business, economic and community development, and I've been there ever since. And I suppose, and this is whereby Ray's actually said it to me a couple of times, that he wanted someone a little bit different, perhaps more glass half full, and willing to try different things to invigorate the department and see what we could try differently in the Shire. So when, after about 12 months, I suppose, I got my head around what was actually required and came up with some ideas, and have, I suppose, been implementing those ideas. And two of those are what I would like to present to you today. We are trying something, we're trying a different approach, and it runs concurrently with several other initiatives that we've brought into the Shire. We started planning our open day in January this year. The dates were finalised as soon as the Wimmera Football League draw came out. We planned the date for a weekend around a country footy and netball game. Why? Well, it's more about community when you're moving to the country. We all know that. Doesn't matter if you love footy or you hate footy. When there's a game on in town, there's people there. We chose a game that was under lights. It was a promotion of something which the Shire had actually contributed to, getting Murtoa's lights, so it was a night game. So we worked with the idea around having as many people as we could in the town, and being a buzz, there was also the press there from the local newspapers and things like that. So for us, it was important that we tied our open day in with something that was therefore making the town be alive, I suppose you'd say. We set up a subcommittee of locals, and they were present to host the weekend and be available to show the families around the schools, the hospitals, etc. They were a young subcommittee, including international movers, and also from the tree change perspective, whereby Melbourne people had already moved to Murtoa. As well, the subcommittee included members of various different community groups. So we had the Murtoa Progress Association represented, the Lions Club, Footy Club, Lake Marma Committee as well. So we set up the subcommittee very early in January. The way we advertised the event was quite unique. Obviously, I'm an international. I consider myself international, as in my partner's from Canada. I had to convince her to move to Australia and then convince her to move to Horsham. So we live in Horsham, I work in the Shire. So for her, I sort of got an idea of how best to promote things that would appeal to her. So we advertised extensively on Facebook, and we looked at Facebook pages where internationals have moved to Melbourne. So there's hundreds and hundreds of them out there, whereby Canadians in Melbourne Facebook page, Brazilians in Melbourne Facebook page, Norwegians in Victoria Facebook page. And the idea, what we did then was, I've been lucky, I suppose. I've got a lot of contacts who speak different languages, and we set up a basic cut and paste. Hi, would you like to come and try Murtoa for a weekend? We've got free VLine passes, free food, free accommodation in their native tongue. So it was set up, in Portuguese, and we put it in the Brazilians in Facebook page. We did it in French for not only French Canadians in Melbourne, but also Parisians in Melbourne. And we advertised like that, as in a different way. And obviously, we also had, leading into that, the Regional Victorian Living Expo, which gave us that extra opportunity. So we shot videos of internationals who'd moved to the Yarriambiack Shire and had then set up businesses, and we got them to shoot it not only in their own language but also in English. So what this did, when we ran that on a video loop at the Regional Victorian Living Expo, was people who'd be walking by would hear their native tongue. So they'd hear Nepalese being spoken, so then they'd be able to talk and say, well, hang on, what's this? And then they'd stop and listen. So we looked at that as an angle, just as a way to just try and get that extra 1% of people take a little bit of interest in what we were doing. We budgeted well, and we spent more on planning the actual open day than we did on the Regional Victorian Living Expo. Now, in saying that, we didn't cut corners. for our stand at the expo. However, for the open day, we made sure that we had enough money for accommodation, for food, for transportation around the town, and obviously having Nicole and Regional Councils Victoria come on board with the free VLine passes was a fantastic selling point for us to be able to then have that as an option to talk to people about at the Living Expo, and when they sent in their Facebook inquiries as to how they can get to Murtoa for the open day. The town of Murtoa opened its doors to the families and individuals for 36 hours. Those who came had received the complimentary VLine passes, and as well as the free food, accommodation, entertainment. The goal of the open day weekend was for city people to move to the Shire, and for this event, from this event, we did have a couple move to the Shire. They bought a house in Rupanyup and have moved in and have already become part of the community. Now, this was the thing, we promoted Murtoa as an open day, but we got the opportunity to talk to many many potential residents about the entire Shire. So Rupanyup actually fitted for this couple, and they have bought a house there and they have moved there. Related to the program, I did make a note of this, and sorry it's not officially on where I'm up to, but this program, I believe, helped not just our Shire, but it helped many towns and also Horsham Rural City Council, because Murtoa was close enough to Horsham that people thought about starting a business in Horsham. They looked at Murtoa as potentially not the place where they'd like to open their restaurant based on a business model that they've set up from a business plan. And this is where my role, business and economic development and community development, was really good. I could come into play because I could talk to them about a business plan and a model and then say, look, perhaps we'd love you to live in Murtoa, we'd love you to set up a restaurant in Murtoa. But here's, having had a look at your business plan and seen what you would like to accomplish over the next 2, 3 to 5 years, perhaps you are looking at a market of 16,000 people as in restaurant-wise. So I was able, in our instance, I passed on one potential restaurateur to Colin Kemp in Horsham. That was a better fit. Now, I could have been very selfish and therefore lost them altogether to the region, to Geelong, which was where they're looking at. The other option was Lara. However, I think that it was important to share this sort of idea. Now, they will probably buy a house in Murtoa. They actually wanted to buy a house in Murtoa and have their restaurant in Horsham. Now, that may come about in the next 12 months. So it's just a matter of the flow-on effect is we shouldn't be selfish, in my opinion, and say we want all this for Yarriambiack. We should look at our region, I believe, as a whole. That's just my opinion. That's may not necessarily be the Shire's thoughts on it all, but that's how I see it anyway. So now to 2015, we've already started planning our event. I think it's important, just from our perspective, that we start early. It is a slog, it is hard. However, for us, we are going to hold our 2015 event in Warrnambool. I've already worked with the Warrnambool Action Group in relation to setting up a subcommittee whereby they'll basically bringing in members. They're going to put in a request to the Warwick Eagles Footy Club that will then request a game to be on, I think it's the third weekend in May, which also coincides with the Creekside Hotel's International Food Festival that they started 3 years ago. So the idea again is that in Warrnambool on that particular weekend, which is post-Regional Victorian Living Expo, we'll have a footy game on, have a netball game on, kids will be running around the streets. We'll also have other people there to check out the International Food Festival that's on at the pub over the weekend. So we'll have we'll have an active town to be able to sell, I suppose you'd say, to potential tree changes. So look, just into summarising, I mean, look, the idea is that working together with the community, we can make something special for our open days, and the idea is not to think of it as a glass half empty, we can't do this, we can't do that. It's just thinking, I think, in my opinion, outside the box a little bit. Just in relation to the Warrnambool Action Group and the subcommittee from Warwick, we've got the Murtoa subcommittee that we had run this year's event who'll come across and present as to how they did it and what they felt worked and what didn't. So it's just an idea for us is to get started on this as early as possible. So come May next year, we have a very successful open day, and for us, it worked very well. Again, it's hard to measure, but hopefully if I can just pass on anything, it's for you guys just to say have a go at it and embrace the idea, because it might not be this year, it might not be next year, we know that. It might be 3 or 4 years down the track that the people do make the move to your Shire. So we had 12 We actually had 20 that signed up for it, but due to reasons they couldn't all make it. So we did have numbers there. I didn't actually have a problem personally with people seeing it as a free weekend away. I thought there's our tourism factor. They've explored a new town that potentially they wouldn't have come to anyway. And now they'll come back. In Murtoa's instance, we had the big weekend on just gone. So we know that some of the people that came in May also returned for the big weekend. And so they came and they didn't even know about the big weekend when they first came to visit us at the Regional Victorian Living Expo in April. So I think I personally didn't have a problem with them taking advantage of a free weekend if it meant that they'd tell their friends about it. That's the best advertising. So that was my thoughts on it anyway. We did bring along a real estate agent and also took out as many flyers as we could from the local real estate agents, and also we got a list from Wimmera Business Association and Wimmera Development Centre of jobs that were going in the Shire leading into that month's time. So we had them there available. We also had, which I'll sort of tie in with the commercial building improvement program, we had a list of vacant buildings that were available that were zoned correctly for anyone wanting to start a certain business, and also we had building owners and business owners there. We had Mal Shear from Shear Cabinets Makers was there. He followed up, I think, for the next couple of months with someone who was potentially looking to come and work as an apprentice cabinet maker. So that didn't quite work out. So we had business owners as part of our subcommittee, which was very helpful. 10 of the 12, yeah. 8 of them were actually straight from the Regional Victorian Living Expo. 2 of those 10 actually had seen the Facebook page and it came to the Regional Victorian Living Expo because we'd promoted to come and talk to us more about the open day there. And then the other 2 had came from the Regional Victorian Living Expo 2013. They were the 2 that actually ended up moving. So they'd made a decision. They were there in 13, then they came to visit in 14 at our open day Murtoa and then made the move because they were well prepared. So. The other thing I did mention with the accommodation point, it's actually interesting. We have Murtoa and there's only one hotel that has accommodation in Murtoa, which is the Railway. So we had concerns, I suppose, that we were not going to be able to find enough accommodation if we did have 20, 25 people. So the subcommittee set up their own caravans on the caravan park, which is the Shire-owned caravan park. So we had their caravans there ready to go if required. And we also had billeting. So we had families as host families ready to go from the subcommittee. And so we matched those, well, we had those matched with, say, a family with a couple of kids who'd already moved from Melbourne with their kids, with another couple considering doing so with their kids as well. So that was the big draw card. Was a lot of kids were there on the open day. As part of the subcommittee, a lot of parents with their kids. So the kids were running around in the playgrounds while their parents were checking out the schools, and the principal from the school was there. He made sure that he opened the doors and talked about what they do. Obviously members of local committees were there to talk about, well, this is the Lake Mama at Murtoa. This is what we're doing to upgrade the lake over the next couple of years. You know, there'll be the swimming pool was a big hit, obviously, for a lot of people moving from Melbourne, that they can go to a swimming pool. So that was something which was talked about a lot, was, oh, when's the swimming pool open and things like that. So they also took a day on the Sunday actually to drive to Horsham and had a look at the hospital and things like that, which was nearby. So.